The Night Elves in World of Warcraft are one of the oldest races to have ever existed on Azeroth, and because of this, they possess an incredibly long and captivating, yet tragic history, and in today's video, we are going to explore that history. In today's video, we are going to be looking at 10 interesting facts about the Night Elves. Number 10. To this day, most remember the War of the Ancients as the result of the Highborn's doing, and because Azshara was their queen at the time, most deem her as the one who was most responsible for the Legion's invasion. However, Lord Xavius, the High Counselor to Queen Azshara, was actually the Night Elf that is most responsible for drawing the attention of the Burning Legion. One day, Xavius approached his queen and presented an idea of using the Well of Eternity to cleanse Azeroth of the lesser races and make it perfect in her eyes. With her approval, Xavius and the Highborn began their meddling with the well, but unfortunately while doing this, they drew the attention of the fallen titan Sargeras. Sargeras immediately leapt on the opportunity by pulling the counselor under his sway and convincing Xavius into believing that the Titan was a god sent to deliver Azeroth. Xavius then convinced Queen Azshara of the necessity of creating a portal connecting into the Twisting Nether through which Sargeras and his vast army would be able to enter into Azeroth. Upon communicating with the fallen titan, Azshara too became captivated in his incredible might and gladly agreed to align with the Burning Legion as she saw it as a way to further her goals. So if you look at it from this perspective, Xavius was really the one who initiated the War of the Ancients. Number 9. During the time of the War of the Ancients, Lord Ravencrest served as the first leader of the Kaldrai resistance. However, even though the Night Elves definitely could have used the aid of the quote-unquote lesser races being the Earthen, Tauren, and Furbolgs in defending Azeroth against the Burning Legion, Lord Ravencrest refused to contact them for aid for fear of his commanders defecting from his service once they saw the lesser races like the Furbolgs were fighting alongside them, emerging with their elven ranks. Even when Lord Ravencrest was assassinated and succeeded by Deathstel Stareye, one of his commanders, Stareye refused to even harbor the thought of asking the other races for aid even though they desperately needed it. He even refused the counsel of both Ronan and Crassus on the grounds that they were not Night Elves, but when he died, no one mourned his death, because he did much more harm than good. His successor, on the other hand, was a true leader at heart, even though he himself did not believe it. And whereas Stareye took and ended his role as a failure, this new Night Elf managed to unite the lesser races and the Night Elves together in the name of the Resistance, and under his command, the allied forces were able to stand their ground against the Burning Legion. This Night Elf's name was Jarod Shadowsong. Funny enough, Jarod did not view himself as an impressive leader and was actually reluctant to assume control of the Resistance, but in reality, his mere presence alone would raise morale of not only the Night Elves but of all of the lesser races that were fighting on the battlefield. In addition to this, his unorthodox tactics were extremely effective in holding the line against the Burning Legion that Ronan, the Earthen, and the Tauren all insisted that Jarod assume complete command of the allied forces. Number 8. In Illidan's youth, he had attempted to master the druidic forces as his brother had, but he began to feel a calling towards arcane magic and sorcery instead. And for good reason. He was actually one of the most powerful sorcerers at the time, second only to Queen Azshara, who was the most powerful sorceress of their time. His mastery of the arcane was in fact so impressive that he automatically surpassed the ranks of the senior sorcerers and even became the personal sorcerer to Lord Ravencrest, which made many of the other sorcerers quite jealous. Number 7. During the War of the Ancients, Malfurion enters the Emerald Dream and manages to defeat Lord Xavius. As a result, when facing the punishment of his failures, Sargeras tortures Xavius' disembodied spirit repeatedly, but then decides that the former High Counselor could have further uses after all. So he resurrects Xavius and gives him a gift by transforming him into a satyr, thus branding him forever as a servant to the Burning Legion. This transformation marked the first satyr to have ever existed, and as such, his task was now to convert as many Highborn as humanly possible into satyrs. Among the many that were transformed was the personal friend of Lord Xavius, Perotharn, the first boss that we encounter in the level 85 Cataclysm dungeon, the Well of Eternity. Number 6. Even though the Night Elves fought valiantly and courageously, the demonic armada was seemingly endless and undwindling. Because of this, Malfurion knew that his people would not be able to last much longer. So he, Tyrande, and many of the Night Elves under the Kaldrai leadership decided that their best chance of winning the conflict would be to destroy the Well of Eternity and thus closing the portal and cutting off the Legion invasion. Though many of the Night Elves reluctantly agreed with the decision, none of them were as appalled to this course of action more so than Illidan. Illidan was in fact so opposed to this decision that he abandoned his brother and set out to warn the Highborn of the Kaldurai's plan. Although he forsook his comrades, the sole thought of the Well's destruction horrified him, since he knew that it would prevent him from ever wielding magic again. Because of the insanity brought on by his addiction to arcane magic, in addition to his resentment towards his brother's love for Tyrande, Illidan made his decision. A decision that would haunt him like a specter, tarnishing his reputation forever after. Unfortunately, however, his selfishness and lust for power ultimately led to Malfurion's forces being ravaged by Azshara and her guardsmen since she was warned of their plan. Number 5. Upon arriving at the main audience chamber within Zinajati, the Kaldurai found the Highborn in the midst of their final dark incantation. The Highborn were in fact so close to summoning the Lord of the Legion that Sargeras' shadow was said to have been drawing closer to the surface of the well. With no choice, Malfurion and his forces attacked the queen and her sorcerers, but since she was prepared, she and her guardsmen ravaged the Kaldrai. It was only after seeing Tyrande fall after having suffered grievous wounds from the Highborn which threw Malfurion into a murderous rage as he lashed out at Azshara. The battle between Mad Queen and Hero threw the Highborn spellwork into chaos, which caused the Well of Eternity to implode, blasting the lands of Kalimdor apart into what we see now to this day, where the magnificent well once stood. The terrible scar known as the Maelstrom now took its place, and thus the first sundering had taken place. Number 4. As the black waters of the Well of Eternity poured into the palace as a result of the sundering, Azshara raised a magical shield that would protect her and the remaining Highborn from drowning. While plummeting into the abyss, a voice from the old gods, most likely N'Zoth, echoed in her head. "There is a way you will become more than you ever were. We can help. You will be more than you have ever been, and when the time comes for what we grant you, you will serve us well." Her spell then collapsed, and as the well began to fill their lungs, they did not drown. Instead, they expanded with hate and rage, physically transforming from the Highborn into the Naga. Number 3. Following the conclusion of the war that changed not only the Night Elven society, but the entirety of Azeroth as it once was, Illidan attempted to create a second Well of Eternity by pouring the contents of 3 vials which were filled with water from the first Well of Eternity into a small lake at one of the mountain peaks of Mount Hyjal. Fortunately, for the sake of Azeroth, his plans were foiled when the Kaldurai found out what he was attempting to do. The first Night Elf that discovered what Illidan was up to was Jarod Shadowsong, and as he attempted to stop him, he was in turn badly injured by Illidan's vast command of the arcane powers. But when the rest of the Kaldurai arrived at the lake, they managed to stop the magic-lusting Night Elf. Jarod's sister, Maiev Shadowsong, after tending to her brother's injuries, then lashes out at Illidan, attempting to kill him right there on the spot, but is stopped by both Tyrande and Malfurion. Maiev also has a strong distaste and even a hatred for arcane magic. She believed that the magic was the source that was mostly responsible for igniting the horrific events of the War of the Ancients, and that arcane magic in general was a horrid evil and filthy power that was created with the sole purpose of bringing doom to the world, and it almost did. The fact that Illidan attempted to create another Well of Eternity just to satisfy his arcane cravings added to the fact that he managed to injure her brother are just 2 of the many facts as to why she is so determined in tracking down Illidan in Warcraft 3. She hated him. Number 2. Queen Azshara was flawless among the eyes of the Night Elves. The Highborn followed her blindly and loyally without question, while the Kaldurai, who still adored her, simply could not believe that their queen would make a pact with the Burning Legion when the demons invaded Azeroth, because she was portrayed as a perfect queen, a perfect ruler of her people. And unfortunately, this dangerous radical devotion to her blinded a good majority of the Night Elven people, which allowed the War of the Ancients and the Sundering to occur. Tyrande, who is now the current monarch of the Night Elves, keeps this in mind and tries to differentiate herself from Azshara in every way, shape, and form, since the Kaldari of today's time and age also treat her with extreme adoration, just like how the Highborn treated Azshara. It has been stated that her greatest fear is becoming another Queen Azshara. Number 1. Following the years after Illidan was imprisoned, Jarod, still believing that he was no hero, although many of the other Night Elves praised him as one, decided to lessen his presence within the Night Elven society. He eventually leaves his brothers and sisters altogether, leaving Tyrande as the sole monarch of the Night Elven people. He did not tell anyone where he was going, and he did not bid anyone farewell, and there was no sighting of him, he just vanished. But in the Cataclysm, we see Commander Jarod Shadowsong once again on the front lines aiding Malfurion within the Molten Front. So where was he all this time? How did he just magically appear in-game? Well, in the novel Wolfheart, after 10,000 years, Jarod returns to Darnassus because his wife, Shalysir, has fallen extremely ill. Even despite being gone for thousands of years, however, the Sentinel Guards immediately recognize him and assist him and his wife in reaching Tyrande before she passes, but unfortunately, even with the extraordinary powers of Elune possessed by Tyrande, it was just simply not enough to heal his wife. After her passing, a funeral was held within the Temple of Elune, and as the ceremony was ending, Jarod witnessed a ghostly image of his wife float up from her body and smile at him. The ghost then shifted into a ball of moonlight and made way for Elune. When the ceremony was over, Jarod met with Tyrande and thanked her for the beautiful display, for allowing him to see his wife one last time. But Tyrande responded by saying that she had not done a single thing, and what he saw was actually Elune granting the couple one last goodbye.